Okay, let's jump right into it. We're tackling a passage today that is incredibly vivid, sometimes uncomfortably so, honestly.
Mm.
But it's packed with powerful meaning. We're looking specifically at Ezekiel chapter 16.
Right, a challenging one for sure.
It really is. And it confronts you immediately, doesn't it? With this arresting image right at the start.
Yeah, the beginning is something else.
It describes Jerusalem's origins not as, noble or special, but as utterly desperate, like a newborn baby just abandoned.
Cast out, yeah. Completely exposed, unwanted.
It's such a stark, almost brutal way to begin.
It really sets the stage, though. It establishes this deep and pretty intense allegory that runs through the whole chapter.
An allegory for what, exactly?
Well, the text uses the relationship between God and Jerusalem, and Jerusalem here stands for Israel, the people. It pictures that relationship through the metaphor of a covenant,
Right.
like a marriage bond. And within that marriage framework, it explores rescue, faithfulness, and then deep, deep betrayal.
And eventually restoration,
Sure.
or something like it.
Yeah. Yes, a complex restoration at the end. And look, the language is graphic. It's intentionally confronting.
Why so graphic?
I think it's meant to underscore the severity, the emotional weight of what's being described. You can't just skim over it.
No, you definitely can't. And those grim details start immediately with that abandoned infant image.
Mm-hmm.
It says her parents were Amorite and Hittite.
Right, grounding her origins outside the sort of expected lineage.
And then it gets really specific and, frankly, disturbing. Her umbilical cord wasn't cut,
Yeah.
not washed with water, not rubbed with salt, not wrapped in cloths,
Basic, essential care. Omitted.
just thrown out into an open field,
Mm.
despised. Kicking about in your blood, it says. It leaves absolutely no doubt about the helplessness, the neglect.
And those details, about the cord, the washing, the salt, the swaddling. In that ancient context, they're incredibly significant.
How so?
These weren't just like hygiene tips. They were the fundamental actions a family took to say, this child is ours, we claim it, we nurture it.
Huh.
So to not do them was the ultimate act of abandonment. It signaled rejection, basically leaving the child to die.
So the text is using these really specific, heart-wrenching cultural cues.
Exactly. To hammer home just how hopeless Jerusalem's initial situation was, no status, no protection, no care.
Wow. So it's not just poetic language. It's using the most potent symbols of rejection available at the time.
Precisely.
And this is where the turning point happens, the divine intervention.
Yes, the shift is dramatic. The text says, then I passed by and saw you,
Uh-huh.
and as you lay there in your blood, I said to you, live.
Just like that, live.
Yeah, it's this pivotal moment, divine gaze, sovereign choice falling on the utterly rejected.
Not because she deserved it or earned it.
Not at all. It's presented as pure, unmerited grace, commanding life where there was only despair and, frankly, impending death.
And from that state, kicking in blood, the transformation described is
Well, it's
Wonderful.
incredible. It really is rapid. She grows like a plant of the field.
developing, maturing, becoming beautiful, reaching the age for love, as the text puts it.
It's this almost unbelievable trajectory from despised discard to this blossoming beauty.
Which then leads into the formal covenant, right?
Yeah.
And the adornment.
Exactly. The adornment is breathtaking. The text describes the divine partner spreading his garment over her,
Covering her nakedness.
which is an act of protection, of claiming her. Then, a solemn oath entering into a covenant.
The marriage proposal, basically.
That's the allegory, yes.
Huh?
And then come the gifts, lavish gifts. It's almost hard to picture how extravagant it is.
Like what?
She's bathed, the blood washed away, ointments applied, then the clothes. Embroidered dress, fine leather sandals wrapped in fine linen, costly garments.
Wow.
And then the jewelry. Bracelets, a necklace.
A nose ring. It specifically mentions a nose ring.
It does. And earrings. And finally, a beautiful crown placed on her head.
It's an astonishing list.
Mm-hmm.
Gold, silver, the finest fabrics, jewels. The complete head-to-toe transformation.
Totally. From exposed, bloody infant to royalty.
And it's not just clothing. She gets the best food, too. Fine flour, honey, olive oil.
Right. Sustenance and luxury. And the result, the text says she became very beautiful.
Rose to be a queen.
Her fame spread among the nations. But here's the crucial part. It spread because the splendor given to her made her beauty perfect.
So it wasn't inherent beauty, they're saying. It was given splendor.
Exactly. It's splendor bestowed that made her perfect, elevated her status entirely because of the one who rescued and adorned her. This represents immense blessing, security, visibility.
Okay, so we have this dramatic arc. Utter helplessness to unparalleled beauty, status, fame, all thanks to divine rescue and covenant. But the chapter takes a devastating turn.
It really does. A tragic turn. The text says it bluntly. But you trusted in your beauty and used your fame to become a prostitute.
Oof, there it is.
That's the allegorical punchline for breaking the covenant. Spiritual unfaithfulness.
Using the very gifts, beauty, fame as the tools for betrayal.
Precisely. The perversion of the gifts.
And the specifics of this betrayal, they're laid out in shocking detail. She lavished your favors on anyone who passed by, just indiscriminate.
Yeah.
Taking her garments, those gifts, and using them to make gaudy high places for this spiritual prostitution.
Using the wedding dress, essentially, to decorate shrines to other lovers.
And taking the gold and silver jewelry symbols of the covenant and melting them down to make male idols.
And engaging in prostitution with them, with the idols themselves.
Putting the embroidered clothes on the idols, offering God's oil and incense to them, even the food.
Yes. The fine flower oil, honey, provided by the covenant partner, offered as pleasing incense to false gods.
What does that signify? Using the gifts like that.
It highlights the depth of the perversion. It's not just turning away. It's actively using the resources and blessings provided by the divine partner to engage with others.
It's like taking the wedding rings and the food your spouse provides and giving them to your affairs.
Exactly. It's a profound insult, a deep betrayal of the relationship itself.
And then comes what many find the most horrifying detail in the whole chapter.
Yeah, this part is tough.
It says, "And you took your sons and daughters whom you bore to me."
Whom you bore to me. That's crucial.
Right. And sacrificed them as food to the idols. It repeats it. "You slaughtered my children and sacrificed them to the idols."
This is intentionally confronting. It represents the ultimate violation.
Because these are the children of the covenant.
Exactly. The text explicitly calls them my children, God's children, born to him within that relationship. To sacrifice them to idols. It signifies complete surrender to false worship. An act so heinous it consumes the most sacred fruit of the original life-giving relationship.
It's a chilling picture of how deep the betrayal could go.
Absolutely.
The text also talks about why this happened.
Right.
Or the mindset behind it.
It does. It points to not remembering the days of your youth.
Forgetting that initial helplessness when she was naked and bare, kicking about in your blood.
Forgetting where you came from, and forgetting the one who rescued you. A profound amnesia about her origins and the source of all her blessings.
And it wasn't just a lapse. She added wickedness to it.
Yes, building mounds and lofty shrines on every street corner, everywhere.
So public, widespread, brazen idolatry.
Integrated fully into public life. Her beauty was degraded, her promiscuity just increased, lavishing herself on anyone who passed by.
And it names names, allegorically speaking, engaging in prostitution with the Egyptians.
The Assyrians, the Babylonians, which likely represents seeking security and alliances from foreign powers and their gods instead of trusting the divine partner.
Right, turning to other powers. And there's that fascinating, almost perverse detail about the nature of her prostitution.
Ah, yes. This is really striking.
The text explicitly says she was the opposite of other prostitutes.
How so?
While others received payment, she scorned payment. She gave gifts to all her lovers.
Bribing them, it says, paying them for favor.
Yeah, she was the opposite, giving payment, receiving none. What's the point of that?
It's a crucial detail. It elevates the allegory beyond simple unfaithfulness for gain. This wasn't about profit from the lovers.
So what was it about?
It shows a self-debasing act, actively paying others to accept her favors. It underscores this deep-seated rejection of the divine partner. She's willing to impoverish herself, pervert the whole transaction, just to engage with these false alternatives.
It's like rebellion driven by a self-destructive impulse.
That's a good way to put it. A deep-seated self-destructive impulse.
Okay, so after this incredibly graphic description of betrayal, its depth, its perversity, what are the consequences laid out?
Well, the consequences are described as being just as severe and graphic as the betrayal itself. From the sovereign Lord, the stated outcome is that he will gather all her lovers, the ones she doted on, maybe even ones she didn't like.
Gathering them against her.
Gather them against her, yes. Strip her naked in front of them. Expose her disgrace publicly.
So the very ones she sought intimacy with become the witnesses.
And the instruments of her humiliation.
The punishment detailed feels like a twisted mirror of her initial state, but imposed this time.
How do you mean?
Well, she's sentenced to the punishment for women who commit adultery and shed blood. The two main charges, right? Adultery against God, shedding the blood of her children.
Right. That brings blood
And
vengeance.
she's handed over to those former lovers.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who will tear down your mounds, destroy your lofty shrines.
Ah, I see.
They
Yeah.
strip you of your clothes, take your fine jewelry, and leave her naked and bare all over again.
Exactly. Stripped of everything that was given to her, the very things she misused, and returned to exposure and destitution by the very parties she courted.
And the punishment doesn't stop there, does it?
No, it says a mob is brought to stone you and hack you to pieces with their swords. Her houses are burned. And significantly, this punishment is inflicted in the sight of many women.
Why? As a public warning.
Precisely. Emphasizing the public nature of her disgrace as a warning to others. And the text gives an explicit purpose for all this severity. I will put a stop to your prostitution, and you will no longer pay your lovers. It's meant to end the behavior. And then my wrath against you will subside, and my jealous anger will turn away from you. I will be calm and no longer angry.
So the judgment is framed almost like a painful surgery. To cut out the cancer, stop the betrayal, and allow the divine passion described as jealousy and anger to finally subside into calm.
That's one way to interpret it, yes. Intense, painful, but with a purpose.
Yeah.
To eradicate the source of the betrayal and restore some kind of right order.
The chapter then uses that well-known proverb, like mother, like daughter, and it uses it to draw a comparison that many readers find pretty shocking. It explicitly calls Jerusalem a true daughter of her Amorite and Hittite parents.
Right, connecting her back to those roots.
And a true sister of Samaria to the north and Sodom to the south.
And that sisterhood with Sodom is particularly jarring, isn't it, given Sodom's notorious reputation.
Exactly. But the text makes this truly provocative claim. It says Jerusalem soon became more depraved than they were.
More depraved than Sodom.
That's what it says, doing more detestable things. And it even describes Sodom's sin specifically here.
What does it say Sodom's sin was?
Interestingly, not sexual perversion in this passage. It says Sodom was arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy. They were haughty and did detestable things. Social injustice, arrogance.
Okay.
Yet, even given that, the text insists, your sister Sodom and her daughters never did what you and your daughters have done.
Wow, that is a powerful statement. Jerusalem was worse than Sodom.
It completely flips the script on who we might assume was the benchmark for depravity.
Yeah.
And it hammers it home. Samaria didn't commit half the sins Jerusalem did.
So the conclusion of this comparison is...
brutal. Jerusalem made her sister seem righteous by comparison. She's told to bear your disgrace and be ashamed because her sins were simply more vile.
What this section does so powerfully is highlight that the betrayal wasn't just, simple unfaithfulness. It reached depths of perversion and self-degradation that surpassed even those held up as the ultimate examples of sin. It underscores the magnitude of the covenant breaking.
It really does. But after laying all that out, the full scope of the betrayal, the severity of the consequences being worse than Sodom, the chapter takes this sudden, remarkable turn.
It does. It's quite a pivot. The text says, however, that's the turning word.
I will restore the fortunes of Sodom and her daughters, and of Samaria and her daughters, and your fortunes along with them.
Restoring Sodom and Samaria too.
Alongside Jerusalem. That feels completely unexpected after that comparison.
It really does. And the reason given is also striking.
What's the reason?
So that you may bear your disgrace and be ashamed of all you have done in giving them comfort.
Wait, giving who comfort?
Giving Sodom and Samaria comfort, in the sense that Jerusalem's even greater sin made them look less bad by comparison. The restoration of all three is somehow tied to bringing about this profound, humbling shame in Jerusalem.
By showing her that even those she surpassed in sin are also being restored.
That seems to be the implication. The text says the sisters will return to their former state, and Jerusalem will return to hers. It's a shared, humbling restoration.
And this surprising restoration, it's not based on Jerusalem suddenly becoming worthy, is it?
No, not at all. The text grounds it explicitly in the original covenant promise. It says, "Yet I will remember the covenant I made with you in the days of your youth."
Back when she was helpless.
Exactly. "And I will establish an everlasting covenant with you." It's a promise rooted entirely in the divine partner's faithfulness to that first oath, not in her behavior since.
So God remembers the beginning, even when she forgot.
That's the idea. And this restoration, based on that remembered covenant, is what finally leads to the desired outcome. Jerusalem remembering her own ways and being deeply ashamed.
The final state described, reinforces that deep sense of humility, doesn't it?
Very much so. She will receive her sisters, Sodom and Samaria, as daughters.
As daughters.
Yeah.
That's an incredible reversal of status.
Astonishing. Though the text clarifies this isn't based on the original covenant with Jerusalem specifically, but the everlasting covenant will be established with Jerusalem.
And the result?
She will know that I am the Lord, and when atonement is finally made for everything she's done, she will remember and be ashamed and never again open your mouth because of your humiliation.
Silence. Not from punishment this time, but from humility.
Silence born of deep, humble understanding. After experiencing the whole arc, rescue, betrayal, consequence, and finally this unmerited, unearned restoration.
So if we just quickly trace that arc again, absolute vulnerability, abandonment, divine rescue, elevation to peak status and beauty.
Right.
Then this tragic, graphic betrayal.
Yeah.
Spiritual prostitution, idolatry, even sacrificing her children.
Leading to severe public consequences inflicted by the very lovers she sought.
And finally, this surprising promise of restoration, including even Sodom and Samaria.
Anchored not in her merit, but in God remembering the original covenant made in her youth.
Resulting in this profound, humbling shame and silence. Wow.
It's an incredibly intense, confronting, and ultimately complex passage.
No kidding. The allegory uses the most extreme, visceral imagery imaginable.
The abandoned infant, the lavish gifts, the graphic prostitution, child sacrifice, the brutal stripping, being worse than Sodom.
And then the humbling restoration, all to depict this relationship between the divine and a people.
Focusing on rescue, the immense weight of covenant, the devastating consequences of infidelity, and the surprising nature of grace and restoration.
What's really insightful, I think, is how that sheer depth and graphic nature of the language, it's used to convey the depth of the relationship itself and the severity of breaking it.
Absolutely. It really challenges any kind of comfortable or superficial notions about these things.
It really does. So
Yeah.
thinking about covenant, broken promises, restoration, not in abstract terms, but through this kind of vivid, almost shocking allegory.
From abandoned newborn to adorned queen to degraded prostitute worse than Sodom, and finally to the silenced recipient of unearned grace.
How does grappling with that dramatic, almost unbelievable story arc challenge, or maybe deepen your understanding of these fundamental concepts? It certainly gives you a lot to reflect on long after you finish reading.